All right. So, hello everyone. My name is Miss Sam, and I am one of the teen librarians here at the Levittown Public Library. And I want to say thank you to Olivia LoVerde for joining us today. Olivia LoVerde is a graduate of Carnegie Mellon University School of Drama with a BFA in lighting design. She is a freelance lighting designer with a focus on theatrical design. Since graduating, she has designed multiple shows in summer stock theater and an off-Broadway musical, Good Morning New York. In addition, she's assisted on several off-Broadway productions, television shows, and lighting installations, including the Tony Awards, the Grammy Awards, the Saks Fifth Avenue Holiday Light Show, Harry Clarke, Friends, the Musical Parody, and many, many more. So with that said, I'm going to turn it over to you, Olivia, and thank you so much for joining us today.
No problem. Thank you so much for having me. I'm happy to be here. So I'll start with a little background on me and how I got into lighting. I first started lighting when I was in sixth grade. I joined my school's drama club to be a part of the tech crew, kind of on accident because a friend was doing it, and then she ended up not doing it, but I kept with it. And they needed someone to volunteer to help with lighting, and nobody offered. So I was like, well, I'll do it. And next thing I knew, I found the thing I loved doing and knew I wanted to do for the rest of my life. So with that, I decided to go to college for it. And then I've been working professionally now since I graduated in 2017, so about 3 years. And I've worked on a lot of projects, as you mentioned, in theater, TV, and installations. And if those aren't things you're super interested in, there's also lighting for concerts, film, architecture. So then as a lighting designer, I work freelance, which basically means I don't have any consistent job or boss. I get hired per show or event and work for them for whatever the timeline of the show is. And then, it definitely takes a little bit of a certain personality to work like that and not know where your next paycheck is coming from, where your next job is, and having to kind of plan your time on your own without the help of, a boss and a job giving you projects to do, so on and so forth. But there's if you go into architecture, say, that's a lot more structured, and you usually work at a firm and you'd have a little bit more of a regular job. And then in theater, the paycheck is definitely varies based on what you're doing, what size show you're working on, and how long you've been in the field. Starting out, it's definitely, a little bit of a starving artist vibe. You get paid not a ton, but as you work your way up, you get paid a little bit more. TV, you get paid a little bit more than you do in theater, and it's the same concept of you start off small and you work your way up and slowly make more money. And then depending on what aspect of lighting you're most interested in really guides where you might want to end up living. So LA would benefit you the most if you're interested in TV or film. And if Broadway is your goal, then New York is a good place to be. But of course, there's theater all over the country. So it really depends on the scale you want to work at and what your long-term goals are. Because you can work at regional theater in every state. And if that's how you want to, you want a more small town life, then you can basically do theater anywhere. But there's just less theater depending on where you are. I knew that I wanted to be in a place with as much theater as I could get my hands on and maybe one day make it to Broadway. So I chose New York. That being said, I have traveled for work. Depending on what I'm doing, I've been more local, like going to Boston for a few months, and I've also gone to China for a couple of months. So it could take you anywhere. But if you don't want to travel, you don't have to travel. You can choose to take just the local jobs. But if you want to travel, then it's a great opportunity for you to get out there. And there's some options in lighting, like if you did concerts or touring Broadway shows, to constantly travel, and then you can live anywhere you want as your home base because you're just always on the road. So it's a good option if you want to get out there. I have friends who tour and they really enjoy that they get to be everywhere. I mean, they've gone to Europe and Australia and Asia, and that's not something you get to do with a accountant job maybe. If you choose to go into the entertainment industry, it's a very collaborative career path. So it's not something you want to do if you don't like working with other people. I'll talk a bit about the process of working on a theatrical production. And this whole process is you relying on other people and having to communicate with other people. So a theatrical production consists of a creative team, which is usually a director, a costume designer, sound designer, scenic designer, lighting designer, and sometimes a media designer. And it's the goal of all these people to work together and create a cohesive show and hopefully a very successful one. And typically, the director has an overall vision or idea of how they want to interpret a play or musical, and it is the job of the creative team to help bring that vision to life. This usually starts with the scenic designer coming up with a set design, and while the scenic designer is working on that, they have to keep in touch with all the other departments, especially lighting and sound, because we have a lot of elements that have to exist in the same space and work together. And we need to make sure that there's enough room for all of this to happen and, not step on each other's toes. An example is like if a scenic designer is like, I want a roof for this show, and it looks really nice, but it blocks every way a light could hit the actors on stage, then we need to work on solutions together that could, get us both what we want and not make either one of us have to compromise too much, but also not negatively affect the show. And then once the scenic designer finishes their work, it's up to the other designers to put together their drawings and have how their equipment's going to go into the space. So, and this whole process is the design phase. And your daily schedule for this phase really depends on the show you're working on. It's usually a lot of meetings and spending time on your own, working on drawings and image research and getting concept ideas. In this design phase, lighting kind of has two phases of their design process. And the first phase is early in the process, working with the other departments to create this full stage picture. And in this phase, you're spending a lot of time drafting, which is using a computer program called Vectorworks to place all of the lighting equipment into the theater. And then your second phase of design comes a lot later in the process, once the show is blocked, meaning the director has gone through the whole show, deciding every move the cast makes, if it's a musical, what every dance looks like, and what set pieces are on stage at what time. I then go to rehearsals to watch the show and take notes. And after this, I start the cueing process. And this is when I decide which lights are going to be on when, what color they'll be, where they're pointed, and when they need to change what they're doing. And for me, this is like my favorite part of the whole show. It's like where I feel I get to be creative and get lost in the world of the show and like really kind of like paint the stage with the lights and bring something that most people don't really notice is happening on stage, because like a lot of people forget the lights are there, and incorporate it into the show in a way that's like kind of seamless, but also is bringing something to it without people realizing. So before the cast moves into the theater, all of the technical elements have to get installed in the theater. And as a lighting designer, this means you're now working with another person called the master electrician. And you give them all the drawings you've made of where your lights go in the space. And they are in charge of taking those drawings and making them reality. So they work on hanging all the lights, making sure all the lights work, that they have power, that they're the right colors, everything that you need. And you're responsible to help make that happen by giving them everything that they need, so it's not a hard job for them. And then throughout the process of through the rest of the process, you continue to work with them to make sure everything stays functional, or if you need to change anything or, update any aspect of your lighting. So then once the design phase and the rehearsals are over and everything technical is put into the theater, we move into what is called tech. And this was when all of the elements of the show come together for the first time. So the actors are there, the sets are there, the costumes are there, the lighting, the sound, everything is working together now for like the first time. And it's probably the most stressful part of the job because, you know, they're usually long work days. You could be in the theater for 10 hours in a day trying to get all this working together. And it's a lot of people all in one place trying to make it all happen and trying to not like lose too much of their design, but not overpower another person's design. And it takes a lot. And then near the end of tech, once things are more solidified, everybody's mostly done with the process, we start going into dress rehearsals, which is starting to run the show full out without having to stop and make changes. Because during tech, you start running the show and then you keep stopping when you need to adjust technical elements. So like if I need to focus a light on an actor because they have to land in a specific spot every time and I need to make sure that that light's in the right place, we rehearse up until that point and then we stop and we fix it. And it's the same thing if a set piece doesn't work or a costume change doesn't work, we stop and we fix it and we go back and do it again and kind of very slowly work our way through the show. And so then once we get to a dress rehearsal, a lot of those problems should be fixed by now. And we're working on running the show without having to stop and fix anything and seeing everything work together. And then once we get through dress rehearsals, there's what's called previews. And this is when we start having audiences, but the audiences know that like this might not be the final show and that we're still like working out the kinks and making sure things work. And having an audience's reaction is really helpful in gauging whether or not what you've done works. You know, if a joke lands and nobody laughs like every night, then it's like, all right, maybe that joke needs to change. Or, you know, this costume is supposed to wow everybody and nobody reacts at all. So we use that to help prepare ourselves for when we hit opening night, which is then when we have audience members for real. And like, this is the final product that we want to continue to show for as long as it possibly can. And then once, as a designer, once the show hits opening night, you have very little to do with the show anymore. You can pretty much walk away from it. The show is now in the hands of a board op and your master electrician to maintain. They run the show every night. They make sure everything works before the show every night. And unless there's some sort of crazy problem that arises, you don't have much left to do for it. So it is an interesting process to like spend so much time and put so much effort into something, and then all of a sudden you just like, yeah, don't have to keep going. So the long story short is that working in theater means you're going to have weird hours. You're not going to work 9 to 5 like your friends might. Chances are you have to work on a weekend, probably even holidays. So it's not a career you enter into like on a whim. If most people who are in this line of work like absolutely love their jobs, it's like a true passion because it takes so much time and so much dedication that if you're not like willing to put all that effort in, then it's probably not the right path for you. So now, if everything I said hasn't scared you away from a career in theater, you're probably thinking, what should I do next? So that I would recommend that you could get involved in your school's drama club or local community theater. This way you can start developing your skills and learning more about the industry and really figuring out if this is something you want to do. I don't think I know anybody that is in theater that didn't do theater before they went to school for it. Because it's just like, you don't pay all that money to go to school for theater if you're like not sure. And then when you're applying to colleges, you want to look at programs that offer a Bachelor of Fine Arts degree. And I went to Carnegie Mellon, which is a great school if you're interested in entertainment. Some other schools that are really good are SUNY Purchase, Emerson College, Boston University, DePaul University, and there are tons more of schools to look at all over the country that have various specializations for theater and entertainment. So it's really up to you to see which school might work best for your learning style, because each one offers kind of unique experiences and different learning styles and different aspects that they focus more on. Some schools have a lot of theater, others have more TV or concert. So it really depends on what you're interested in, that which school might work better for you. And then, and every school kind of has like a slightly different name for what this major might be. But like keywords to look for are like theater, drama, design and production. It's a little weird because like my degree is just a BFA in drama, but like, yeah, but like, and so are the actors I went to school with, but like I learned completely different things than that what they learned. So it's a little interesting how that works, but all these schools have a lot of options within drama.
So is it just on a quick question? So is it just the classes that you took then within that program that were then more dedicated to lighting design compared to like friends who had the same degree but were focused more on acting or whatever else?
Yeah, so the school, at least in Carnegie Mellon's case, the School of Drama has a design and production program, which that's what I was in. And it starts you off with a year and a half of learning all the aspects of theater design and production. So we take, basic design classes and we learn about lighting and sets and costumes, media, every part of putting a production together. And then we get to choose our focus. So then for the last 2.5 years, you focus in one field. So like mine was lighting design. So even though my degree says drama, it's not like I can act too. But then like at CMU, they also offer acting, musical theater, directing, and then I think that's everything in undergrad. But then for grad students, they also offer some writing classes. So they have a lot to offer, and we all earn the same degree, but we all learn very different things. And then you're also probably thinking, if I want to go into theater, why should I care about any regular school subject? And I can say that when I was in high school, I felt the same way. I was like, I want to go to theater. Who cares about physics? But just because you want to do theater doesn't mean you don't have to apply to a college still. So that college still cares about your grades in school and what you got on the SAT, and that you were a well-rounded student who did extracurriculars. So it might seem like, oh, I can't believe I have to sit through science class, but it's worth it because then you can get into a good school still. And you never know what show you work on and what you might need to know. I mean, so many shows happen in like pivotal moments in history. So having a good understanding of what's happening in history is helpful because you can go into a show and be like, oh yeah, I know what happened then, and have a better idea than if you didn't pay attention in your history classes. So my overall advice is if you're in high school and even once you're in college is just to work hard no matter what, even if it seems irrelevant, because I can guarantee it's more relevant than you think it is. And you just don't know how helpful that could end up being in the long run.
Are there any classes that you feel that you use more now, being in the field, like math or things like that, that you think are extra important?
I definitely think like English is a good class. When you're designing a show, you go through and analyze a script and you have to get down to like the themes of what the show is about, and what the writer was trying to get across, and how you want to interpret this, and what is important. So having those skills that like I had in English class were definitely helpful. And I'll tell you, like, I never use chemistry, but like physics is kind of a part of what I do. I don't have to like actively use physics, but having a general understanding of how physics work is important when you're, aiming lights at stuff.
So I have
questions.
I have some general questions.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's just say that a teen is definitely interested in this career. They find a school that they're interested in, they graduate. I know you're a freelance lighting designer. So I know you were saying that you can kind of choose kind of how if you want to travel or if you want to do more local theater. The question I think every teen then has is, how do you find those jobs? Like what is the next what is the process for applying for a job? How do you find where these jobs are located? Because I know it's something that's a little bit more kind of, you have to be kind of in the industry to be able to hear about all, you know what I'm saying? So
yeah, I mean, I will say that whole who pays kind of thing is true in theater. Going to a school that has a lot of alumni, and from what I've seen in every person I know who's graduated from any theater school has great alumni connections. And I mean, I've gotten a lot of jobs through that. And there are like theater versions of like Indeed where you can find jobs online and apply to them. So you just kind of like learn all these little things about the best ways to find jobs. And a lot of it's word of mouth. Like once you work with one person, they introduce you to somebody and like they need a lighting designer and you're like, I'm available. And so it's kind of a slowly building your network of people and getting jobs that way.
So networking is definitely a big thing within.
Yeah.
And I think that's what can generally say about the entertainment industry as a whole, right? I guess my other question too would be, I know you talked about, doing theater within high school and being part of your local drama clubs and things like that. Is there anything else that you could suggest that they could be doing while in high school now, to kind of prepare or work up to those skills or really get a head start kind of?
Sure. One of the things I mentioned is a drafting program called Vectorworks, and there's a lot of like student free trials of those kinds of things that you could get online and just start practicing with it. And there's tons of videos on YouTube to teach you how to use that stuff. There's also some like entertainment industry companies that have programs online that you can participate in. There's one that's it's called ETC. It's Entertainment Technology something. I don't remember what it's but it's called ETC, and they have a great website that has a ton of like helpful like things to get you involved in theater and learning about the technology and the programs. They recently had one that was all about the lighting design for Hamilton. So it just is something that you can start doing to just learn more about the field.
Okay, I guess one of the biggest questions that I know everybody is thinking about now is COVID. It's kind of hard not to talk about it. So, do you think that, I mean, obviously we're all kind of curious of how things will change coming, obviously Broadway is closed now until June and things like that. Do you foresee any, I know nobody can really predict the future, but do you foresee any changes that you might think might change in the industry moving forward, or?
I guess it really depends on when it opens up in the process. I mean, I'm imagining lots of safety protocols, but for the most part, theater's incredibly resilient. I mean, it's been around for a really long time and I don't see it going anywhere. So I think when it comes back, it might, take a little while for people to want to go back to a theater, but I don't think it's going to have many like growing pains when it returns.
Very cool.
Personally.
Yeah, I would definitely agree. I think eventually it will come. We'll just have to wait it out, I think.
Yeah, and I think unfortunately because it's live, like it probably won't come back until it can do so without having to stay 6 feet away and masks and things like that, because it's kind of hard to do performances live and keep all that distance, even for the people backstage working.
Yeah.
The backstage space of theaters is not very big usually.
Right. Oh, another thing I wanted to ask too is, are there any licenses or any things like that that you need to have in order to work in this field?
No.
Certifications, or that's the word I was looking for. Okay.
So if you decide to go into the more technical end and you want to not be a designer, but you want to be the one that's installing these things in spaces, there are some certifications like OSHA that you have to go through just to make sure you're doing everything safely.
But on the designer end, you don't need any.
No, when I design, there's in my drawings I have a little note that's I am not responsible for the structural stability of any it's not my responsibility to make sure that it's safe. That's the responsibility of somebody who's trained to make sure it's safe and not gonna hurt anybody.
Awesome, which is another reason why everybody collaborates, which is great.
Exactly.
Do you find that there are any times that are busier for your career during the year? Obviously, when the world was normal. Are there busier times of the year than others, or is it pretty much a steady flow throughout?
I think you're usually busier kind of right before summer, maybe right before the holidays, because that's when it's everybody's gonna be going to do things in the summer and people are seeing shows for the holidays. So you can be I find at least that I'm a little bit busier right before those times. And then it tends to maybe be a little bit slower in the summer and a little slower in, around Thanksgiving, Christmas.
Right. Okay. And then I think the last question that I had was, if a student is not planning on doing college, let's say they're not college bound, obviously they wouldn't then get, the same degree that you had, but is there any jobs within that field that you can think of that they might still be able to aspire to if they're really wanting to avoid college?
Sure. I mean, I think it's totally possible to work your way up people who didn't go to like people who did go to college in the field. I think it just might be a little bit more difficult because you don't have the name recognition of a school. But it's not like being a doctor where it's you have to have a degree. You don't need a degree to work in theater. It's just, I think, more beneficial. And there's definitely if your interest is just you want to work in a shop that prepares equipment for shows, you definitely don't need a degree for that. A lot of people who work in the shops, they didn't go to theater school and they just enjoy working with the technical side of it.
Very cool. Yeah, so that's great. That's the one thing I do really like about the entertainment industry is there's so many options and opportunities out there that really, I feel like if you have an interest in entertainment, you really can find your place kind of anywhere, which is kind of not always the case in other fields. So I think that's really something that's very unique about the entertainment industry.
Yeah, and I think a lot of it is because even with my degree, which not to toot my own horn, I went to a good school, so I have a good degree. I still have to pay my dues and start at the bottom and work my way up. So people without a degree can do that. It just might, like I said, be a little bit more challenging.
Right. Awesome. Obviously, do you have any last tidbit of advice for students that are interested in this type of career?
I think if you're interested in it, just to work hard for it. And sometimes it feels like it's not going anywhere and it's incredibly difficult to find work. But I always find that things come up. I might not work, but then all of a sudden it's oh, I have a job tomorrow. Mm-hmm. So to not lose hope in it.
Persevere.
Yes, exactly.
Very cool. Well, I just want to say thank you again for sharing all of your amazing wisdom with us. And, we appreciate you taking your time out of your schedule to come meet with us. And, like I said, we're going to be posting this on our website. So this way, teens who were unable to attend tonight will have a chance to look back at it and are free to ask any questions that they may have in the future. So thank you so much, Olivia, for
Thank
joining
you for
us today.
having me.